We got this.
We do. Listen, this is all a part of the progress. I have no shame in my game. I am a student to it. So I appreciate it.
Amen.
Also, guys, well, so this is our second recording on my end. So thank you so much, Priscilla, for working with me on our technical issues for this episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks so much. We got to roll with it and figure out the right systems and processes that work. It's all part of it.
Isn't that though entrepreneurship, right? Isn't that the whole name of the game? It's like
100%.
People don't tell you. It's like entrepreneurship is like you're trying to fly, but you got to jump off the cliff, put everything else together at the same time while figuring it out, and then making it to the destination.
100%. You're building the plane as you're flying it. It's quite a ride.
Awesome. Well, you've been able to build quite a plane, been able to teach and coach over 100 different women in your business, which I'm very interested to talk about. As I told you, I have 5 sisters and a mother who's an entrepreneur. So my goal is they can see this, one, be proud of me, to have some stuff on the show. 2, they can reference it on their journey to like building their own, brand and company. Mom and sisters, if you're watching this, your son did good. But with that being said, you are the co-founder and the CEO of the Forward Female, right? You are to build powerful personal brands and overall just businesses. So I would love to dive a little bit deeper into that and just understand more of the background of like how you got to this point, if you don't mind sharing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jay. It's been quite the ride. And, I feel like I haven't gotten started, at the same time. My entrepreneurial journey, I think, has been a journey to say the least. And it really started, I would say, whenever I was growing up. I grew up in a household where my dad was an entrepreneur. He really showed me what was possible. I was on sales calls whenever I was like 5 years old, like matching outfits and my own briefcase with my dad. I'm going door to door selling dental lasers, going door to door and selling candles, and really just understanding what entrepreneurship looked like. And on the flip side, my mom was a really hardworking single mom. She did nails for a living, and so I really saw her loving what she did, but also really struggling and having to, show up between a certain hour every single day and really having to fight to kind of live, a lower middle class type of life. And so I had this amazing duality growing up and seeing what kind of 2 ways of living and 2 ways of working could really be. So through that, I was able to kind of take all of that in, of course, not realize how much I was learning at that time from my parents. I hated going on these sales calls. I hated, dressing up like my dad. It was like the worst thing ever. And at the same time, I was learning so much that helps me now to this day. Fast forward, I went through a lot of different iterations of my career, starting in media and marketing in corporate. So I worked in corporate media. I was a producer for Warner Brothers. I worked in corporate for companies like Red Bull and Bumble. And I learned so much at a really young age. But ultimately, it all came back to my entrepreneur spirit and wanting to create something, which is where I left all of that behind and started Forward Female. And man, has it taken on so many different iterations to this day. And I'm sure it'll take on so many different ones in the future. But it's been an amazing journey so far, and kind of getting to where I'm at today and being able to help the people that I'm able to and support in different ways. It's everything. And I love what I do now. And I'm really proud of that.
That's incredible. I want to say you've taken a journey that most people definitely haven't or won't ever get the experience to, right? You started off almost in a sense as an entrepreneur because of your pops. I've done door-to-door sales. It ain't the easiest thing. It does have some fulfilling moments to it, like especially building character. This insight that most people only wish to dream of, even when they're older. And you started that insight very young. Do you think that is what inspired you to make that full circle back into the entrepreneurial space? Because you're working with some heavy hitters, Warner Brothers, Bumble, Red Bull. Most people see that as like the pinnacle of like, okay, we're good. I'm going to continue down this corporate route because you're collaborating with all these heavy hitters, but you're like, no, I still want to have my own thing. What, like, that's not common for people to then leave that and start to recreate their own. I guess why
Totally.
do you think because you started off young and knowing maybe there's a subconscious programming where it's like, hey, this is always still the goal, and you just had to like put the skill sets more, or what made you do that full circle?
Yeah, totally. Jay, I don't think it was one moment. I think there was a lot of moments that kind of built up to it. And as I look back, and I look back at, my being young and being in those scenarios and not realizing how much I was learning, but really learning so much. There's so many instances that I look back on and I'm like, oh, I get the full circle moment now. I mean, I remember even this one moment distinctly. My dad had started this candle company and he basically put all these candles in the back of a red pickup truck in Texas. And we would go business to business selling these candles door to door every single day. And I remember, gosh, I just hated it, but I was like the money counter. So every time we'd make a sale, I would, count the money in our little Ziploc bag and I would, make sure that we were hitting our targets for the day. And I would get really excited whenever we'd hit our targets because we would like be done for the day. And then, there was this one moment where my dad put me in the role of the sales position. It was in the middle of the summer and we pulled up to this beauty salon that he had sold candles to before. And he said, all right, you're in the driver's seat. I want you to make this sales call today. He said, you have two options. You can either make $5, whether you sell anything or not, just for going in and doing it. Or I'll give you commission. I'll give you commission on every candle that you sell. But if you don't sell any, you don't make anything. And I remember that was a very distinct moment in my life of betting on myself and realizing the power of betting on myself and betting on my abilities to do anything I wanted, no matter what it was. And at that time, I was probably 10 years old, a kid in the summer wanting to make some money to go do something with my friends, right? But I knew I didn't want just $5. I knew I wanted more. So I chose the commission route. And that day I made, I think it was $80 or $85 on that sales call, selling $5 candles. And my dad was, blown away. He thought he'd made, that was the worst deal he'd ever made because he could have made it out probably a little bit better than that. But we still look back on it today and laugh because it was a really distinct moment of him putting me in a position to bet on myself. And then me realizing what could come from that. And that was a big moment for me, one that I still look back on to this day. But I'm kind of a person that once I set my mind on something, I go all out to figure it out until it's done and I do it. So, growing up, I wanted to be in media and I really saw that being something really fun that I could, do things that I loved every single day would look different. And so I took on internships in high school. I got a full ride scholarship to college because my parents were not going to pay for my college. And so based off of doing everything I wanted because I didn't want to go to community college. I wanted to go to university. And I went all throughout my college years and I got some really amazing internships. I learned a lot in media that set me up for what my next step was going to be, which the only thing I wanted was to be in Los Angeles and to be working in media and to be on a big production and to maybe one day run a whole show was kind of what I was looking at that time. And I did it. And I was like 22 years old. I was living in Los Angeles and I was working, at first as an executive assistant for some big executive producers at an entertainment show that I wanted to be at. Um, I had gotten a lot really early in my career. I was like, wow, how much better could it get? Everybody was looking at me as being really successful and I was realizing that it wasn't actually what I thought it was going to be, that it wasn't really allowing me to live the life that I wanted and that it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought. And that was really devastating to me and not being truly fulfilled. I think anybody that's graduated college or you've just graduated high school, everything's been kind of like set up for you, right? You do this, you do this, you do this, and then you're going to achieve Y. And all of a sudden, I was in this really big office in Los Angeles, and I didn't really know what was going to come next or what I wanted. And I remember there was a second distinct moment for me. And my dad came to come visit me in Los Angeles. And I thought he was going to be so proud of everything I had accomplished. And he came to visit me at my office at Warner Brothers. And it was like a cubicle, not really an office. And he was disappointed in me. And he said, Priscilla, you're so much better than a cubicle. You have so much more potential than this little cubicle can offer you. And I was like blown away because I was saying, this is everything I wanted. No, Dad, you don't understand. This is like what it is and what it's going to be. But he said, you look next door and that's, your boss, and they're just in an office maybe a little bit bigger than your cubicle. And are they really happy? And I didn't know, but I really set me off on this quest to understand it and what would really make me happy and what I really wanted. And so I started, getting curious and, and digging a little bit deeper. And that's what set me off on a quest to kind of go into marketing and look at Bumble and companies like Red Bull and start working with them. And I was doing that at the same time I was at Warner Brothers, by the way. So I was working like 2 full-time jobs at the same time, but I was learning so much and I was meeting so many people and I was discovering problems that were kind of arising that I was able to help with. And it kind of is where the seed got planted for what Forward Female was and then would be today.
Yeah, but first of all, if nobody's giving you your flowers today, I'm going to go ahead and give you your flowers while you're here. This is an incredible journey, but you mentioned so many different things that I would love to break down a little bit, right? Any entrepreneur, anyone that's starting business, there's like key pillars that you have to know or should have a good idea of, which is like the finances standpoint, sales, the marketing, more or less. Now, you started off kind of the finance part, learned sales, which I think everybody, I'm a big component to sales, regardless if you become a salesperson. I think everyone can learn the art of sales because you're selling at every moment, every opportunity. Anytime you meet someone, selling yourself on the idea of what to have for dinner, right? It's just communication. That's the best I like to put for sales. And then you pivoted to now like more of this marketing space. So you're like, you already covered all three, which is pretty.
Yeah. And by the way, at this point, I'm like 23 years old. So I have a lot under my belt at a really young age, which is a big, a privilege for one. I had this amazing privilege of being able to have all of those experiences at a really young age because I was really clear from a really young age at what I wanted. And so I was able to start really, going after what I wanted. But, that doesn't mean that if you're sitting there today thinking like, well, that wasn't me. I didn't have this experience. I didn't know what I wanted this early. That's something that can start now. It just starts with the idea of being curious about what it is that you really want.
No, and I'm so happy that you say that. And it reminds me, I was having a conversation with someone, and their biggest thing is like, you should just always be asking questions, right? Questions. Mm-hmm. Like, be curious whenever you meet someone, whenever you're doing something, having an understanding. But the biggest thing is just continuously ask questions because those questions will provoke curiosity and it becomes this reoccurring cycle. And for you to have gone into like these establishments, which was always your dream, but then you realize like, okay, this isn't it. I think you said something very crucial when your pops came to visit you is that he saw something bigger for you. And I think now a lot of people realize the value of having someone in your corner, or even if it's someone from the outside that's not close by you, looking and being like, no. There's a bigger vision. There's something like, don't stop. This is cool. This is good. This is a nice accomplishment. But this isn't it. This isn't like your end journey. But being able to realize that and decide like, okay, maybe there's some validity to what they're saying. Let me, this curiosity part, see what that could be and then explore that, which takes a lot of courage from people to do so. Like I've been in those boats plenty of times. I have a bunch of friends. They're like, I don't see how you have the risk tolerance to just like leave everything behind and go. I was like, I don't feel like I have any other choice. But for some people, it's hard for them. For yourself, when you're working with all these women, have you found like having to be there for them and help them through that same process where it's like, hey, there's something bigger here for you. You should really, take that on? Or how does that conversation look like when you're working with all these different women?
Yeah, totally. I've seen it at so many different ages and stages of entrepreneurship and of business owners. Whenever we first started Forward Female, we were working with more of the startup, have an idea, how do we turn the idea into something and start generating, our first $100, our first thousand, our first 10,000, those very, very early stages that time it was very different conversations because it was these women that were really looking to build something. They were just getting acquainted with betting on themselves and asking for help, right? Which are these two like really big factors, I think, in success. And the more and more I started working with entrepreneurs and with business owners, I started working with more seasoned and more seasoned entrepreneurs and helping them in bigger and bigger ways. I mean, now my clients today are like, billionaires, like quite frankly. And so whenever it's very different mindsets, but there's a couple things that are similar that I see that if you have these, no matter what stage you're at, you're not the billionaire stage yet, but you're just at really that, that beginning stage, you can still harness a few different qualities that will help you, reach whatever level of success that you want to, whether that's a dollar amount, whether that's a lifestyle type, maybe it's a feeling of what the impact it is that you want to make in the world. But if you have the capacity to bet on yourself when nobody else will bet on you and believe in yourself more than anybody else will believe in you, that is one of the key factors. I always tell my clients, I cannot believe in you more than you believe in yourself. I cannot believe in your idea more than you believe in it. You have to own that completely, because if we stop working together tomorrow and I'm the only one that's believing in your idea, all of a sudden everything's gonna, go to shit, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
because you didn't have that really strong foundation of actually believing in your idea. Now, this has to be coupled with being able to ask for help too.
Okay.
There's a lot of entrepreneurs where you feel like you might need to know everything right when you're getting started, and that quite simply is not the case. But if you are able to really hone in and understand what it is that you're getting curious about and what it is that you want to expand in, and you can ask the really smart questions that'll actually get you there, then that is where you can be leaps and bounds beyond other people, because one, you are not too proud to ask for help when you need it. And for two, that you're able to get really specific on what help that you need versus how do I build a really big business, Priscilla? Or how do I like understand my finances to understand when I'm profitable, right? These are two totally different types of questions to understand that will actually get you further, right? And actually allow somebody to help you in a really meaningful way. And the other thing is resilience, which I think that you talked on earlier. If you really have the resilience to like be okay with failing, be okay with learning, be okay with growing, be okay with evolving, and understand that that's going to come at different paces and speeds, and really own that, but never lose sight of the vision, the super clear vision that you have, and understand the mission, the purpose, the core values that you have that are driving you to get there, then you will get there. There's no doubt that you will. It might look a little bit different, might even look better, but you will. And that's the power and resilience that I've seen from entrepreneurs at every single age and stage. If they have all of these qualities, they are unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on something very important, and there's a couple of things I want to ask you for what you said as well too. One of those things, one of my mentors, his name is Myron Golden, and one of the things he had a conversation with someone, and it was the concept of like, I can't be more inspired or motivated or interested in your business than you can, but when you're coaching someone, it feels like you have to. Now, yes, you do have
Mm,
part where I'm happy you said it's like, hey, you still need to want it for yourself, but when you're
yeah.
it's like you kind of have to be that person who's an amplifier or this generator for this person to overcome and escape the velocity for wherever they. So I think there are parts
Yeah.
to, hey, I do want it, not necessarily more than you, but maybe to a certain energetic level so that you can get to the same like place that I'm at so that
Sure.
you care. Right.
Yeah. I think for me, I look at coaching different now than I did whenever I was first getting started. So today I really look at coaching as, I'm not your motivator. Like that really isn't it for me. As your coach, I'm the person that's going to ask you the right questions. I'm the person that's going to make you think different. I'm the person that's going to help you discover what's already within your own being and your own capacity. And that's what I want to help you discover. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm always going to show up with the energy. I'm always going to show up in my highest vibration to help others show up in that vibration as well. I'm going to give you the good juju. I'm going to give you I'm going to be your business bestie to where that's the person that you want on your side that's always looking at the glass half full versus glass half empty. Like I will be that person. I will be the person that will ask you the questions that make you think different. I will help guide you, but I'm not your cheerleader. As big as it sounds, like I think there's a lot of coaches that do that, and I think it's fabulous, right? But what I really see in my clients that are the most successful is that they don't need the cheerleader. They need the guide. They need the person to help ask them the right questions that can help guide them to where they actually want to be and dig deeper into their own intuition, into their own power, into their own ability to build a business that is uniquely theirs versus me telling you the 1, 2, 3 of what to do. I think that's way more powerful, in my opinion. And if you have that person that's asking the right questions, you become more and more confident in your own being and yourself. I would love for you to only need to have 2 sessions with me, and then all of a sudden you are thinking different for yourself, right? You're thinking different and you're thinking bigger and you're asking the right questions and you're bringing in consultants to help you in a bigger way, because that is real power to actually get you to where you want to be versus me just sitting there on an hour-long call with you and putting you and filling you with a lot of inspirational quotes that'll get you to a certain stage. But what will really get you to where you want to be is you being able to ask the right questions to yourself and stay curious in the right way and push yourself more in that ability. And, to take it back to my dad, really what he was saying is, asking me the right questions and helping whenever I was doubting myself, saying, but look at all of these other things that you have done. There's no reason why you won't get to where you want to be. Now, how do we build what that is going to be? And really, to this day now, I call my dad for advice and I really want his advice. And he's always like, I know you're going to figure it out. I know you will. Trust yourself. And that's the advice that he gives me to this day. And I think that's really powerful too.
Yeah. I love that. One, I love the relationship that you two have.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of power in that. And it reminds my dad, I remember growing up, he was just like, if no one was here, how would you solve this? And that's right. And some people may hear that and be like, yeah, but if you have the ability to have others around, why would you not ask? And it's not to say that I won't ask, but before I ask or try to, lean on someone else, am I able to figure this out first or be curious enough to ask the right question first to then get to that
Yeah.
point? And that's literally what's coming to my mind. And I try to do that almost every time. And some people might be like, okay, you're so independent or you don't need nobody to ask you. It's like, it's not that. It's just if I have the ability to flex this quote unquote muscle, which I think everybody should, then you should do so. And then from there, if you get stuck, okay, now let me ask a coach. Let me get consulted. Let me outside perspective. That's the goal. They're going to see these blind spots that I can't.
Yes, exactly.
My question for you, because I know that your clientele is a little bit different now, and I would love to get into the specifics of the services that you guys provide. Most people find I think it's probably just early on as a coach, the 0 to 1, but it sounds like you develop your skill sets and you become more astute to what you're providing to people. You're more like, I want to work with the clients that's 1 to 2.
Well, it's really interesting because it has shifted our business model has shifted so much from when we first started. Whenever we first started, Forward Female. The concept was, it was a co-working space, and we had a physical location. We first came up with the concept. The concept was all around like women helping women achieve whatever it is that they wanted to achieve, and us bringing in all of these different service providers to be on our website that people could go and they could use. But there was also this physical location where we would have events and workshops, and women could come and co-work together and collaborate. It was like all open concept. And we had this 3,000 square foot office in downtown LA. And that's how it started. And working literally 7 days a week in that office. We were like the plumber, the cleaning crew, the everything, the party planners to bring this together. And it was a membership model. So you would pay a membership to be in the space and collaborate with all of these different women in these different ways. And then we rented office space on the second floor. So that was our model. Now, this is in September of 2019, whenever we launched that model of Forward Female. So this was all in person, right? And through that time, from September to March of 2020, we were able to really start building that membership model, really have this space flowing. And we definitely weren't profitable at that point, but we were growing our revenue every single month. And it was a really interesting but really hard business model, quite frankly. It was really taxing to go to downtown LA every day. We open the space, close the space, and in like February, we were like interviewing to hire our first person to like work in the space too. Yeah. And during that, we were looking at that being the business model. And we were like maybe that year going to launch our digital membership for, have another tier of, if you weren't in downtown LA, that you could be a part of what we were doing. And then that really got expedited whenever the pandemic happened because, overnight virtually, closed our doors, and we had, put all of the money that we had into that space. And we really didn't, have that other option. We didn't have a plan for if we had to close down that space because we had put everything into it. It was, from September to March, it's not a lot of time to really build that momentum. And so literally over a weekend, I went online and I figured out whatever digital platform we could make everything digital. And we ended up going on something called Mighty Networks. And we put all of our members on that platform. So we didn't lose all of our revenue overnight. And within 2 weeks, we decided to officially close the space because we really didn't see an end in sight for the pandemic and things going back into in person anytime soon, which luckily we were right. I mean, not luckily, but like we were right in the sense to be able to close that, to not be bleeding out any other money and have that as a responsibility. And we switched it to digital. We switched everything to digital. We had made all these relationships with all of these women that were then also looking at, how do I switch my business to digital? I need support. I need a website. I need all of these different things. And we had, acquired all of those skills. And so we started helping them all. And that's really where the agency was born. My co-founder, Lauren, she had an agency before Forward Female. So we brought in some of those skills and we started really amplifying that. And before too long, that became, the main source of revenue for the company. And we started growing our team in that way and started coaching people. They needed all the help and support, and they knew me at that time. And so they really were reaching out to me looking for that support. And that's really how I started coaching. And it's just progressed so much over the years to now kind of where we're at today, which is fascinating to kind of think of where it started and where it's ended up.
And do y'all still have some personal events, or are you still just specifically digital?
So, it's really fascinating. So we had the community side of Forward Female and we had the agency side for the last, like 5 years. And so we would host events. So we'd have our community section, we'd host events, do partnerships and conferences and summits and happy hours and all of this for all these women in Los Angeles. And we built a really amazing community in that way. But really what continued to be the bread and butter of our company was the agency. The community side is really difficult, and it's a really difficult model, and it's a really expensive model. And so, as the CEO, I really looked at everything and I said, where do we need to be focusing on? Where do we need our energy to be in order to get to where we want to be? And for me, where I wanted to be is I wanted to be a really profitable company that is helping women on big stages make massive impact. So therefore, we can offer resources and guidance and all of that to the women that are just getting started in their entrepreneurial journeys. And so that's where everything kind of flipped for me. And we scaled back the community initiatives, the events, the activations, and all of these things. And we really focused on the agency.
Yeah.
And we did that at the Q4 of last year. And since then, we've seen even more massive growth within the agency, which is now allowing us to host like very intentional, intimate like dinners and gatherings with like our clients and different women that we want to support. And it's kind of come full circle to like, this feels really right for us right now.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of timing and alignment plays a huge factor. It's interesting that you said the whole thing about like the pandemic, because at that time, a fitness director overseeing different locations, we had to shut down. And I tried to bring the online aspect to the team and to the company, and they just wouldn't like grasp it. Like they didn't want to get involved with it. I was like, you're missing a great opportunity. That doesn't mean we won't be. This is almost the evolution, but this is at least a way that we can keep the business really going. So I think it's interesting for those that's been able to adopt to the digital space that was a physical location and realizing like, okay, maybe we really didn't want this physical thing. We still wanted the impact. Now, what does that look like? And it's great to see
100%.
Been able to do that. And I think a lot of
I always say now, I mean, never say never, but I would never own a physical location ever again. Because the way that we run our business now is so freeing, and it allows me to live the life that I really want to live, make the impact, travel, like do all the things that I want to do. And we make a lot more money doing it this way versus, spending so much money on a physical space, which is very expensive, especially in Los Angeles. And I can't imagine doing it any other way now, but I'm so grateful that I have that knowledge under my belt of what it is like, because I use that to help a lot of entrepreneurs now today.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask, I mean, it's in the name, Forward Female. I meant to ask you this beginning, but I love the fact that it's women specifically, but why women? Like why women niche?
Totally.
I think
it's so fascinating. Well, whenever we were first starting, it was really at the height of the female empowerment movement. This is, so you think 2018, 2019, this is like Me Too, this is Boss Babe, this is, women really supporting women, and that becoming a really big central point in culture. At that time, I was really in love with and enamored with everything about women supporting women. So everything that was, in that space, I was learning and I was getting curious of like why this was really taking over, and talking with so many of my colleagues and counterparts and really understanding from my own perspective why that was so important. And what I uncovered was that there was a big discrepancy in the amount of funding women-owned businesses were getting and the amount of support women-owned businesses were getting and receiving, and the big lack in women truly supporting women, and the idea of collaboration over competition. What I kept seeing is all of these women, I'm a woman, so I'm in a lot of women's groups and initiatives and these different things. And at the time, I was working for Bumble, which, if you're not familiar with Bumble, it's a dating app. At the time, they were launching Bumble Biz and Bumble BFF, which is why I came on to help them launch those initiatives in Los Angeles. And so I was learning a lot about women in business and women friendships at this time, and realizing the like need and the desire that so many women had to like truly come together and collaborate, and just not really knowing where to go and where to turn. Because as I started exploring what I wanted to do, I really saw the lack there. So I found it to be an amazing niche. I found it to be a really big need and something that I was going to be really fun. So that's really where we kind of set off on that quest initially. And since then, I've learned a lot of why it's so important for women to have a voice, why it's so important for women to have seats at the table, why it's so important for there to be more women in business in general, and how much of an impact that that can make to the overall economy, and how successful female-led companies are. I think is a really amazing thing to lead with, because really, as women, we have this amazing, unique ability to kind of see things from both an empathetic lens, but also a very strategic, data-driven lens as well. And we have these qualities that really make for great leaders. So I love working with women. You know, we work with men too. I know, contrary maybe
For
to
sure.
most belief. Um, uh, but we do, you know, our whole thing is that they have to really believe in the idea that we should all come, you know, to the table equally. We don't think that only women should be in these positions or anything like that. We just want to be the support system to help them get there, and that everybody can be working together, that can be co-collaborating, because that's the beauty in just humanity, is when we're all working together, and that when we all have the, you know, resources to get to where we want to be and help each other. That's the beauty in it. So that's the goal.
I love that. And interestingly enough, one of the top mentors I actually look up to, she's like a family friend, and she basically, I call her like a CEO flipper. She goes to these companies, becomes the CEOs, improves them, and helps to like scale, and then like bounces to the next company. And I'm
That's
just,
amazing.
yeah, can I do what you do? Can you teach me how to do it?
It's awesome.
I find it so incredible, and I learned so much value from her. But also, even speaking like my own clientele, I've always found the most successful ones for some reason has always been women. I'm like, I'm not mad about it, but I'm just curious
Mm-hmm.
for women that's looking to become an entrepreneur or kind of getting into this space. Do you feel like they're hesitant due to specifically the resources, or feeling like it's a boys' club, quote unquote? Or like, what do you think
Mm-hmm.
are some of those challenges most women face when they're like, hey, I want to do this. I hear you, Priscilla, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. What I see, and you know, there's a lot of statistics around this, which is really, really fascinating. But like my overall feeling of being able to work with both men and women is that women, I find, they doubt themselves astronomically more than men do. And this is something really beautiful about men, right? Men believe in themselves a lot more than women do. They believe that they can do it. They don't doubt themselves as much, and they go after the things that they think they deserve, right? And rightfully so. They probably do deserve it, right? And that's something really beautiful about men, right? And their ability to achieve, I think. The thing with women that I find is that whenever they haven't reached that necessarily, there's a large population of women that are doubting themselves, that are doubting their ability, and don't think they have all the information in order to make a decision. And in entrepreneurship, in business, if you are unable to make a decision, right, then you're not going to move forward as fast as maybe your counterparts. And so if you are kind of lagging on decision making because you're trying to understand what the right move is, the person, or maybe the man, that is believing in themselves, they don't really care, they're just going to make a decision and they're going to realize they're going to fail, and then they're going to, you know, they're going to fail twice and get 10 times further before you've made one decision. And ladies, I'm not saying we are all like this, because I'm definitely not like this, but you know, I see that there is a large population of women that are maybe in that space. Now, this doesn't mean that they have to stay in this space for long, but whenever they're able to truly overcome it, which is why I approach my coaching in the way that I do, which is why I consult with women in the way that I do, because they have it within them. It's not that they don't have it, it's that they haven't uncovered it just quite yet in order to go full force. Now, the beauty of whenever they're able to truly achieve that, right, and reach where they're of that decision making, of realizing it's okay to fail, of like not doubting themselves and their abilities, then they have this amazing superpower because they can lead with empathy and they can really lead with this nurturing side, which leadership really needs. And that's been a piece of it that's been lacking in leadership without as many women at the table too, right? To where we're able to kind of balance this masculine and feminine energy to really have this harmony in organizations and companies to really move forward in ways that are impactful, meaningful, and have all voices heard. So whenever I kind of look at those, that's typically what's holding a lot of women back is our own mindsets. But as soon as we're able to kind of unlock that and realize that like we're the only ones holding us back, we're not blaming anybody else for holding us back. Like it's our own belief system within our of thinking that all of these other outstanding circumstances are the things that are holding us back. And maybe in particular scenarios that definitely is the case, right? But if we can unlock this, then the media, when somebody tells us no, when somebody tells us we can't do it because we're women, and when blah, 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 you don't care because your mindset is so strong and you've uncovered this undoubting belief in yourself that you don't believe what other people are saying about your ability, your capacity to reach what you want to reach because you believe it so deep in yourself.
Yeah. No, I thank you for so much for sharing that and giving more insight. And I found that to be is true as well, too. And I don't know if it's like a risk tolerance thing, because there's definitely some guys that I work with, they're like, yeah, let's just do it. And I'm that same way too. But then there's more damage control we got to do on the back end side.
Yeah.
So I think there is like it's like on both ends, there's some pros and cons, but things we have to deal with.
Percent. Yeah, like sometimes I bring my husband into some of my like conversations with my team when I'm trying to uncover something of like, why isn't something working? Right. And so I'll bring, or like some messaging that we're putting together isn't really making sense at the end of the day, or it's not landing. And I'll bring him in and be like, well, like, he'll be like, well, why would you say it like that? And I'm like, fascinating. Not every, because our team is primarily all women. So it's really important that we have their voices heard too. So I bring my husband into conversations to say, why isn't this landing with a larger population? And he'll be able to point it out immediately whenever maybe we've gone too soft on something. So it's fascinating. It's like you have to have this like well-rounded approach. I really believe.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. But I think that's the beautiful part about like perspectives, right? You don't know what you don't know, and it's okay because you can learn from anyone. Like I've learned from a 4-year-old all the way up to an 8. Like as long as you're open,
100%.
if you're open and you're curious to be like, okay, well, how could this work? Or like what they said, okay, let's figure this out. You'll gain insights. And I tell people, if you can gain one piece of insight from no matter who it is to just get the gears running, you're pretty good, right? Now, I want to talk because you're focused on helping women build, a business they love, but they also want to involve with, right? Now, talk to me a little bit about the services specifically at Forward Female of like what you do, because I feel like you're like a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
Like
100%. I'm so happy you feel that way because that is it. That's like the beauty of it. Whenever we work with clients, we bring them in and we really understand where their pain points are. What is it that would really help them be in their unique, amazing ability if they had support on the other end? So whether that be that they need, branding to really bring their business up a level or two to attract the clients that they really want to. They need a new website, digital presence, app in order to kind of really serve their client and their audience in the right way. Or they kind of really need that 360 support in their marketing or in their operations to really kind of come in and to where if we're just analyzing it from a consulting standpoint of telling them everything that they could adjust, fix, amplify in order to get it there. If they have an amazing team already at their fingertips, we come in at that level, or we come in at the 360 level of working with you day in and day out of making sure everything is going smooth and running really well for your business. And so that is what our team does. So we kind of are amazing analyzers. We're amazing amplifiers and optimizers. So we come in and we look at things in that lens. We also have this amazing production element of the business, which is so much fun for me because I come from that production lens. So we do everything from TV shows that you see in airports to podcasts that you listen to on Spotify or Apple. And we're actually right now even in the midst of launching a whole network, which is crazy. So, we really are this one-stop shop. But the reason that we're able to do that is because as as unique and different and amazing you think your business and idea is, I love that for you. But I will say what I've realized is there are some core components that if you can figure out those and optimize those and lock those in, it becomes this flywheel for you to really grow your business and to grow your idea. And that is what's not as unique. There's some that are a little bit more unique than others, but for the most part, if you can come in, figure out what that is, you can really take your idea and your business to, the next level if you're open to adjusting, if you're open to reiterating and kind of figuring things out as you go along.
Yeah, I like that. So it sounds like you have a collaborative approach, but you're still
Totally.
helping to steer based on the expertise, right? And I think
Yes.
something very crucial to where some people they're like, well, I don't want to start because I don't feel like I'm going to be unique. I don't have anything quote unquote to offer outside of what's already there. And it's like, yes,
Hmm.
there's nothing quote unquote new under the sun, but that doesn't mean you still can't enjoy, the sunshine, right? I mean,
Totally.
it's okay if someone to a degree is similar to you. It's still an open like ocean out there.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was listening last night when I was making dinner. How I Built This is like one of my favorite podcasts, and I like to listen to all of these, entrepreneur stories. And the one I was listening to last night was the guy who founded Raising Cane's chicken tenders. And I love Raising Cane's and their Texas toast and their cane sauce, so good. But his story was, one of that. He got a lot of no's because they said there's a million different people that have chicken tenders, right? How are you going to be different? And he honed in to understand not how he was going to be different, but how he was going to stand out amongst his competition. So it was this reframe of even if there's a million other people that do what you do, how do you stand out amongst your competition? And if you can really kind of come and ask that question, then you can capture them in a better way. Your audience in a better way that might serve them better and help you be really successful. And he, in fact, was really successful. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, facts. Because I love cane. The first time ever having it, I was in Las Vegas. Because I come from being down south in Florida, so our equivalent
Mhm.
to canes is what we call Zaxby's. So
Yes.
I had it. I was like, this is very familiar, but I was just like, this is a great competitor. what
Yeah, it's
you're saying?
fascinating. Zaxby's, he actually like points that out, like in the interview
Really?
of being one of his competitors and one that he was looking at, and like how is he going to stand out and be really specific. And his location that he chose was one of the key components for him on, I think, outside the LSU campus, being one of his first locations, which was fascinating. But regardless of what it is that you want to do, that's just I think an inspiring story to look at of saying like not how are you going to be different, how is this going to like break through, it's just like how am I going to stand out, and asking yourself that question can be really powerful.
Yeah, and it's funny. I remember seeing a post talking about like Chat GPT. This person prompted a question where it's just like,
Yeah.
look into this niche, look at the weakest link, look at what they're doing wrong, and then create me a problem and then create me a business plan from it. And I was just like taken back because it can be that,
Amazing.
right? Like that.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned something as well where it's like you don't necessarily have to do something very different. Maybe you just make the
Mhm.
systems more efficient. Maybe your customer service is just a little bit better than what theirs
Yeah.
is. Have to be this whole new idea. It's just how to the
Hmm.
value that you're bringing to them, what's going to actually be that valuable thing. And
Totally.
you guys are doing a great job from like the branding, but like the operationals and like marketing
Mhm.
side. So that's why I'm like, okay, this is a one-stop shop. I don't think nobody needs to. That's like the
Yeah.
natural progression.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're definitely a piece of the puzzle. I think as you grow, you'll realize what other pieces there are. and how you need to grow in order to, get to where you ultimately want to be. And that's the beautiful part. So you just have to figure out what is that next step for you and what is the thing that's really going to help you get to that next level. And don't wait on that. Do it before you really feel like you're ready, because the likeliness is that you're probably already ready. So if you're feeling like you might just not be yet, then you're ahead of the curve.
Awesome. And with that then being said, if people aren't like, they're not sure, they're like, oh, maybe I'm ready, maybe I'm not, maybe they want to learn information,
Yeah.
resources, where could they find more information about yourself and also
Yeah.
the female?
Yeah, I mean, everywhere where you just search forward female, we're on Instagram, our website. You can schedule a discovery call with us if you're just not sure. It's totally free, and we'll give you any advice that we possibly can, or gear you in the direction that we feel like might be best suited for you and your business. We also have a podcast, Her Next Big Move, where we interview top women in business. We learn a lot from them too. So we definitely get a lot of insights and tools and tricks from them, as well as I have some solo episodes where I just share advice on business and what I'm learning and wanting to share.
Yeah, I love that. And we will also share any links and resources as well.
Awesome.
Closing out, I'm kind of curious, right?
Yeah.
The world is changing. I feel like it's a little bit easier nowadays for anyone to become a coach, a consultant, be able to turn their passions into profits, right? But with that being said, I feel like there's also a caveat because it's so easy for people to
Mhm.
start that maybe it becomes not necessarily saturated, but becomes hard for people to find the real value that they need to provide. For that, is there any piece of advice for people who say they have this brand or this business idea that they want to start, other than just jump in and go, that you would give them to like consider or question or be curious about?
Yeah, I think, some of the things that I typically look at whenever I'm first meeting with somebody that might be in that exact space is understanding what their vision is. What is the vision for their life? What is the vision for this business of why you're even starting it? Like, why are you even doing this? Which leads to what is the purpose or the mission behind it? Is there some kind of thing that you're really looking to achieve by you putting this type of service or business out into the world, whether that's the world being a better place, more women being able to own businesses, feeding people around the world. Maybe, there's all different kinds of purposes and meanings that you can put behind what it is that you're doing. But if you can understand those two things, then that kind of helps you have a driving force to do it. Because if you just start without having a strong vision or a strong mission, then whenever things get hard, then you might kind of fall off. You might quit because you don't have a driving force behind what it is that you're doing. After you really figure that out, if you can hone in on exactly who your target audience is, and not just, women between the ages of like 20 to, 35, but really understand who they are. What is it that they desire? How do they spend their time? What are the biggest pain points in their life that they would trade anything to make easier? Like, really understand them on a deep level, then you can really understand how to talk to them, what they need, and build offerings that really support that in a really beautiful way. So those would be some of my kind of starting points to kind of start to question and dig deeper on, and you just take a piece of paper and answer, these questions. And then once you have that, then you can go to a coach or a consultant and say, hey, this is kind of where I'm at. What do you think? Do you feel like this is clear enough? Do you feel like this, makes sense? And they can help maybe guide you from there to then understand what to do next.
I love that. When I talk to some of my clients, I tell them, I'm like, what's the DNA? Like, what's the genetic makeup of the person you're looking to,
Mhm.
or even for
Yes.
yourself? Because most of the time, if you're a coach
Yeah.
or consultant, you're kind of solving a problem you had for yourself, and now you're just doing it for
Yeah.
others.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
you can look at what that genetic makeup is. You can answer a lot of the questions already.
Yeah. Yes.
That'll start it. Now, I know that the business has changed over the last 5 years due to
Yeah.
outside circumstances. The
Yeah.
next 5 years for Forward Female, what does
Mhm.
that look like? What's the vision? Where are we headed to?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have kind of this 1, 2, 3, 4 on my desk that I look at every single day. My first marker that I'm looking to reach is a specific revenue number and a specific profit margin that I'm very keyed on. I'm really looking at as that being a big marker of success. From there, I see us adding in programs that really help us amplify and optimize our team. So these programs being offerings that we can put out to the world that really help us look at things differently from our lens, have more space to really amplify and help more women at every single age and stage, not necessarily just at that kind of elite agency level. And then I see us getting into events again in the future. I see us kind of really amplifying that community aspect again once we're able to kind of do it in the way that I always dreamed of doing it. So I see us really kind of building a really strong community of women, again, offering them spaces and places to connect and build together. So hopefully in the next 5 years, that's where we'll be.
I love it. Now, will the events only be for women? Can I come too if I bring other?
You totally can come. You totally can come. We'll pull up a seat for you for sure.
I love it. I got some entrepreneurial women who would probably love to come. So I just want to bring them all.
Love
Awesome.
it.
I love this so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Any last words or things you want to leave with people before we close out?
Yeah, I think just believe in yourself. Know that you have the ability to achieve everything that you desire. And the only one holding you back right now is maybe yourself. So if you can decide right now, today, in this moment, that you're no longer going to let that control you, then the opportunities that are on the horizon are great and so huge that I think you'll be blown away.
I love it. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for coming on to the show.
Thanks, Jay.
Everyone, give them a follow. Check out their website. Crushing it. Stay tuned for cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay.